Tonight, we dive into cold black water and centuries of whispered secrets. 10 wrecks, some frozen in ice, some entombed by silt, some hiding fortunes. Each one a silence that still shouts. And the last one I'll tell you about could rewrite the word treasure. Stay with me. Welcome back to Singularity Animations. If you love strange history, ocean riddles, and stories that make your skin go cold and your heart race, smash that subscribe button and ring the bell now. We bring the past back to life, and sometimes the past refuses to stay dead. Imagine a ship buried so close to modern life that one day a quarry worker lifts a bucket of silt and finds the whisper of a skeleton hull. That's exactly how the Dungeness Tudor ship returned to the world, not from an ice-choked sea or a dramatic salvage expedition, but from a Kent quarry where dredgers were simply doing their job. The timbers, more than 100 oak planks, were found remarkably intact and later dated to the mid-1500s, putting this craft right in the heart of Tudor England. The hull holds the fingerprints of ordinary sailors and merchant voyages, climbing worn steps, large hand-hewn frames, and traces that tell us how work and life were organized aboard a Renaissance trading ship. What's eerie is how close this vessel's life once was to ours. It vanished into mud and then into a modern landscape, only to be pulled back into daylight. But the emotional heart of this wreck is the ordinary people who lived and died by the sea. Craftsmen, fishers, and traders, whose names were never written in a book, but who left their marks in oak. When you imagine the ship again, think of a child in the rigging, the creak of rope, a father's hand steadying the helm, lives muffled, now suddenly audible. Wreck found earlier. In 1682, a royal ship slipped into a sandbank and sank, carrying the future King James II and hundreds of courtiers, sailors, and servants. The Gloucester has the haunting quality of a time capsule. Ordinary objects from a sudden disaster, wine seals, pewter spoons, even a captain's belongings, preserved where they fell. The wreck's public reveal in 2022 reopened a political scandal of its day. Who survived? Who didn't? And how a captain's decision reshaped lives and fortunes. The ship was located by local divers years earlier, but its identity and the extraordinary assortment of artifacts, from personal jewelry to musket shot, were only confirmed and shared with the world after careful study. Listen for the human chord here. A banquet, a carriage of laughter suddenly gone, a mother left with an empty chair. When we peer down at a wreck like Gloucester, the artifacts aren't treasure, they are echoes.
In the history of the Pacific Northwest, the sinking of the paddle steamer SS Pacific in 1875 is one of those events that never quite left the water's edge. Hundreds died. Rumors of hidden gold and the frantic scramble for survivors became local legend. A modern search team, using side-scan sonar and deep ROVs, located a wreck in the likely area and filed for salvage rates after photographing and recovering preliminary artifacts, evidence that this might finally be the long-lost Pacific. The story is half maritime mystery, half courtroom drama. Who owns the artifacts? Who will tell the story of those who never came home? Researchers continue to investigate, and every sonar ping feels like someone scratching at a locked door. Those lost aboard weren't numbers, they were people on journeys home, fathers and mothers, and their silence reverberates across families and coastal towns even today. This one caught the internet's eye for a reason that's almost comically human. Divers found a 19th century wreck off Sweden laden with sealed bottles of champagne, mineral water labeled seltzers, and porcelain, crates of luxury goods that lay undisturbed for more than 150 years. The cargo may have been destined for a czar's court. The bottles are so perfectly sealed that some specialists speculated the fizz might still be drinkable. Those images, rows of glass, light catching centuries of silence, became a modern kind of fairy tale. But there's a sober side too. Authorities quickly restricted recovery to protect a cultural site, and the find raises questions about who owns centuries-old cargo and how to treat delicate items recovered from cold, dark depths. It's impossible not to smile at the romance of it, but also to feel a pang for the lives behind the crates. The merchant who worried about getting a shipment through a storm, the steward who locked up the cellar before disaster, all swallowed by time. Number 6. A Tudor treasure inland, the Dungeness ship and a modern reburial plan. One of the lesser-told details about the Dungeness find is the decision by archaeologists to rebury much of the hull under silt for long-term preservation. That choice, to keep something hidden again so that future generations and future technologies can study it, is a dramatic moral act. What we save and how we save it reflects how we value stories. The ship's timbers will sleep again, but this time under careful guard, so that the fingerprints of Tudor life aren't lost to decay or rushed display. Think about that. We rescued a voice from mud and chose to put it back to sleep, to protect its whispers for people who don't yet exist. There is real tenderness in that decision.
2018, a remote camera system recorded an uncanny sight more than 2 kilometers down in the Black Sea. A 23-meter wooden merchant vessel lying with its mast, rudder, and benches intact. A ship frozen, almost as if ready to sail. Carbon dating suggested an age of about 2,400 years. The reason it survived is part science, part miracle. At that depth, the water lacks oxygen, which starves the organisms that normally eat wood. So everything, from the hull to wooden oars, survives when it would have rotted on any shallow seabed. The find is seismic for historians. It gives us a mid-first millennium BC trading vessel in near-perfect condition, a snapshot of seamanship, cargo, and everyday life from an age we thought could only be guessed at. There's a lonelier thought here too. The further you go down, the quieter the world becomes. This ship is a voice across millennia, and when we listen, we hear a marketplace, sailors singing to keep rhythm, and the creak of wood under a moon we will never see. Some wrecks are cold because of climate. Terror is cold because of history. One of Sir John Franklin's 2 lost ships, HMS Terror, was discovered in Terror Bay in 2016, a find enabled by Inuit oral testimony combined with modern sonar. The vessel sits remarkably complete, and researchers peered inside with small ROVs, finding sealed medicine bottles, pistols, and spaces that tell of the crew's attempts to survive. These ships are tragic, their story threaded with starvation, sickness, and desperate marches on ice. Yet the wrecks have become a place of reconciliation between Inuit oral histories and Western archaeology. There's urgency here. Climate change is altering Arctic storms and currents, and parts of some wrecks are deteriorating faster than predicted. The Terror is a frozen book whose pages are flipping more quickly each year. When we study the Terror, we're not just cataloging items. We're trying to understand the choices made by men pushed beyond endurance, the letters they wrote, the promises they made to one another, and the harsh silence that answered. Number 3. Perhaps the most cinematic salvage of recent years. On 5th March 2022, a dedicated expedition found Sir Ernest Shackleton's Endurance deep in the Weddell Sea at about 3,008 meters. What made headlines was not treasure or treasure chests, but preservation, wood, rigging, the ship's nameplate, even some deck fixtures, all stubbornly intact after 100 years beneath Antarctic ice. The 1914-15 Endurance was crushed by pack ice, and her crew endured an epic survival narrative that has been told and retold for a century. Finding the wreck didn't end the story, it added a final, silent chapter. The ship that failed them became a monument to human resilience, now resting like a cathedral under the waves. The Endurance is treated as a historic site. It won't be plundered. Instead, it will be digitally scanned and documented. How do you narrate that human strain, the quiet courage, the daily acts of leadership that kept men alive? The wreck is an artifact of hope and a stark reminder. Even the best told survival stories have parts that only the sea can tell. Two years after Endurance's discovery, explorers found Quest, the small schooner-rigged vessel on which Shackleton himself died in 1922. Located off the coast of Labrador, at a depth of around 390 meters, Quest is upright and hauntingly intact. It's a full stop at the end of an era. Discoverers called finding the Quest one of the final chapters in the extraordinary story of Sir Ernest Shackleton. This find is quieter than the Endurance in public spectacle, but emotionally raw. Shackleton's life, his leadership, his failures, his myth converges in this modest hull. There's a single human image I can't shake: a chair in a tiny cabin, the faint dent of a body that once sat and plotted the next impossible route. The ship is not treasure in the vulgar sense, it is closure. Now the reveal you were waiting for. In November 2015, an autonomous underwater vehicle helped locate the wreck of the San José off Cartagena, Colombia. This galleon sank in 1708 during a battle and, according to expert estimates, carried an almost unimaginable haul of gold, silver, and emeralds, valued in some estimates at nearly $17 billion. But the mystery is not only the glitter, it's the hot tangle of claims, politics, law, and belonging that surrounds the site. The Colombian state claims the wreck as national patrimony. Private companies, descendants, and even indigenous groups have staked legal and moral claims. Photographs show bronze-decorated cannons and the outline of a hull stubbornly holding its secrets in deep water. Plans for recovery, for who will benefit, and for how the underwater heritage will be preserved have filled courtrooms and parliaments for years. This wreck is as much a story about the present as it is about 1708. Who owns the past, and who gets to tell its story? Let that sink in. A ship that can alter national narratives, financial expectations, and cultural heritage debates. The San José is both a literal chest and a moral mirror, what we choose to value and why. 10 wrecks, 10 silences, each one a human story pressed into cold water. Some we opened and read, others we chose to guard. If the ocean is a graveyard, it is also a library. Every hull is a volume, every artifact a paragraph of someone's life. And when we bring even a single sentence of those lives back to light, the people who were swallowed return to us for a moment. They make us richer in ways no treasure chest ever can. If you felt that mixture of awe and ache, if you want more deep dives like this, with emotional hooks, archival details, and dramatic narration you can use word for word, subscribe to Singularity Animations, like this video, and leave a comment with which wreck you want us to animate next. Should we make a separate episode just about the legal and human drama of the San José, or a visual reconstruction of Endurance as it sank? Tell me which chapter you want drawn out, and I'll bring it to life. The sea keeps its secrets well, but for every secret it keeps, we find one more reason to listen.